All right, musicians, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Music, the web's #1 resource for independent artists. I'm your host, Kyle Williams, and this is our weekly web show where I bring on music industry professionals and successful independent artists to talk about the ways to build a bigger, stronger fan base and earn more income from music. So a quick announcement, if you guys want to just listen to the show and you don't want to watch it on the actual website, we have an iTunes podcast. Just head over to iTunes and punch in Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise into the search box, hit subscribe, and you'll get all the latest episodes downloaded straight to your mobile device. Now, if you want to do more to help out the show, like actually it's just a really easy way to help out the show, just leave a rating and review on iTunes. This will improve our ranking within the iTunes interface, giving more exposure for the show so more musicians can find it. And also, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode if you leave a rating and review, just to say thanks. On today's episode, we have Gabriel Mann, who is killing it with music. He's a musician and a composer, okay? And he's at least made over $100,000 in the past 4 to 5 years of just straight musical income. His primary source of music income is composing for television. And there was something that we said in this interview that you'll find out that I find really interesting and you want to pay attention to, is this idea that if you want to make a living with music, you have to learn to be useful. And for Gabriel, that's meant being able to learn a bit of everything throughout music, from performance to production and recording, and so on and so forth. We'll talk about how exactly he came about to learn so many skills in music, and why for him, in most of his career, he has never said no to anything. And would this advice apply to you? We'll also talk about a very, very important aspect of his growth in his music career, and particularly he went to college, but he also had a mentor. And we'll talk about how important having a mentor can be for you to really, really progress rapidly with your musical skill set. Let's jump right in. All right, this is a really special episode we got on the show today. Gabriel Mann, thank you for coming on the show so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And I know you're probably in between many different projects. I see you're in the studio right now, rocking some awesome artwork in the background, by the way.
Yes, that's Tim Hall. Those are Tim Hall originals. Tim Hall is... I used to work with Tim Hall. He used to work for a video game company. And I did a bunch of music for them, and I was interacting with him a bunch.
Which video game company? I might know because I'm a nerd.
He used to work for Vivendi Universal. Vivendi Universal then got bought by Activision.
Okay, I know Activision.
Yeah. So, yeah. But he worked for them when they were Vivendi Universal. Anyway, he's a wonderful artist, and I have his stuff all over here. Actually, there's another one over there.
Who's the subject on the one that's to my left, like against the blue?
That
wall?
one.
Yeah.
This one is E.E. Cummings on the green background. This one is JFK.
Yeah, JFK, gotcha.
The Love Machine.
Nice. So, what I love about the biggest thing I love about what you do, just in your career in general, is that you are able to do so much. I mean, that baffles me because for me, sometimes I try to multitask between different projects, and I just feel like my brain turns to mush. But that's something like you're able to really, really do, and you're making a living in music, and this is like the current music industry, and have been making music as your primary source of income, since you graduated from college. So I'm just curious, just for everyone that's listening, what is your primary source of musical income right now?
Composing music for TV and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all. I mean, I earn a little bit still from the rescues and from selling my own records and stuff like that, but it is not the majority by any stretch. It's the very severe, it's probably 1%.
1%.
So it's not really anything to speak of. It wasn't always that way. It's gone back and forth especially when we had our record deal, it was different. But
your focus is more towards the composing right now.
Yeah, and it has been probably for at least, well, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about this before in our prelude, is that it's really sort of gone, my focus has gone like this, and it's sort of gradually, I mean, basically now all I do is compose for these things.
Mm-hmm.
Toys, Hot Wheels movies, TV shows, commercials. It's mainly TV shows. But I do a lot of stuff for Mattel.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of my big sort of other outside of the normal music business and outside of the normal entertainment business clients.
Yeah.
But it's mainly TV shows. I mainly write music for
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah. What I think is interesting, and there's two interesting things, two main topics that I wanted to cover with you. One being the fact that you have really become proficient in lots of different areas within music, from genres to the production process to recording. I mean, you do a lot. I mean, I wouldn't list it out now because I would run out of breath before I was able to say everything you do. But besides being able to do everything within the music industry practically, there's also this other side aspect of what you do where it's kind of like there's two different, I guess, subsets of being a musician that you can pursue. One is an artist, where you want to be performing and you want to be recognized as the artist of this music, and the other is the composer, where you create the music and you're in the background, you're producing it, and you're syncing that to television and whatnot. Do you think that it's possible to do both, or do you have to sit down and be like, okay, I want to be the artist, so I cannot be a composer, or vice versa?
I think it is possible to do both of them. I always did both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's possible to do both of them until a certain point. There is a breaking point where I never reached the breaking point in the artist direction. Like, I could always do my artist stuff and piddle around with doing stuff for TV and other activities.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm at such a extreme with writing for TV and all this other stuff that I basically can't do the artist thing anymore. I still have dreams of making my sixth solo album myself, and of there being a third Rescues album. And probably more likely is that there would be a third Rescues album, just because that's not all on me. My solo records are all on me, and so trying to find time to sit down and write a song for myself when I've got my phone ringing and my email going crazy and and the reason that those things are important is because those are generating real income. I could make an album and sell 4 copies to it, and my wife would be like, "That's so awesome," and and I would be like, "That was so fun."
Yeah.
But oh my god, like I would get a lot of satisfaction out of it still.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what it's going to be like. I've already told a bunch of my friends. I can't tell you here because everyone will steal my great idea.
Oh yeah.
But it's just not practical anymore for me personally. That said, you can do both, I think, to a certain degree, and I always did both to a certain degree because I was too afraid of committing to my artist career entirely, because for whatever reason, I think that I was just never willing to not be able to pay rent for a month. And I think that there's a real there's a difference between the people who are willing to not be able to pay rent for a month, and totally commit to their art, and the people that are not. I think basically what I realized at some point was that I'm not one of those people. I cannot. I have other interests and other things that are very important to me.
Like family,
mainly
raising a family.
I have 2 kids and a wife, and we have like cars and a house, and it's all like very normal. And I want that, and even as the Rescues were beginning to sort of take off to the extent that they did, I became very nervous. And this is what would happen to me every time. Every time I would have any success as an artist, as a solo artist or with the Rescues, I would start to get really nervous. Because I was afraid that I was going to have to basically the leave my sort of more normal existence of earning a living uh, and being home for dinner and go off on the road and be Coldplay for the rest of my life. Not that that would have been so terrible, but if I look at it now, I'm like, God, that's like pretty scary. It's
Yeah.
like if you really think about the reality of what it means, if you're
Yeah.
someone who wants a normal life
Yeah.
and you can earn a living, like a good living,
Yeah.
like, do you really want to be on tour for like a year?
And I think that's like
I don't
something
know.
I think what you're saying is incredibly overlooked, because I think there's a lot of fantasies that and misunderstandings that the artists themselves have about uh,
Like what it means to
making
really
it, because like a lot of times they're thinking of the fame aspect of it and not the actual reality of like
yeah,
being on the road all the time, like the sacrifices you'll have to make on time with family, and there's not, because they can't experience that, they don't have like a basis of comparison to how they really truly will feel about it. I
yeah.
mean, I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of artists out there that say that's what they want, that they want to tour like all the freaking time, and be in the studio putting out albums, and to a certain aspect, maybe part of that they want,
Yeah.
and the rest of it, they find out, man, I'm actually not super super happy doing this. I mean,
Well, so that's exactly why I think you can do both of them, and it's very comfortable to do both of them to
Mhm.
a certain degree. It's like really, it's nice to have income from writing music for media,
Yeah,
uh, and it's like solid. It's like you do it, you
yeah,
get notes on it, you send it back. They're like, cool, and
yeah,
you get a check. It's like
yeah.
total commerce.
Hmm.
And it's also really fun because you are in the studio and like
You are making music and getting
and
paid
you
for
are
it.
making music
Yeah.
and maybe it's not like what you would make for your artist record, but like who cares? It's so fun. And this actually gets to your other question, which is that I like everything. I like a lot of different kinds of music.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to only make, and if you actually listen to my solo records, you will see that there is a lot of different kind of stuff there. It's all
Hmm.
sort of like comes down to my voice in the middle, but
I sampled some of like the
the,
tracks on your composer page, like all the stuff,
yeah,
like the different
there's a
music from.
huge variety of
Yeah.
stuff, and I totally get into whatever I'm working on.
Hmm.
Like I don't care if I have some, and I think that the variety of projects that I get to do is it's sort of like I don't know whether my desire to work on my ability to do different things has resulted in being able to do different things
Hmm.
professionally,
Hmm.
or if it's just that I like to do different things, so I seek out different kinds of projects. I'm not always looking for the same kind of thing. I don't know, but the but I like that. I like the variety. I like being able to, like today I recorded an old friend of mine from college who was in my old singing group, and she sang this song for a project that I can't tell you about. And it was awesome. It was really fun. And I got to be like an engineer and like I'm mixing the song also myself.
Hmm.
And that gets to your other thing of like knowing how to do it all. Like I've done a lot of music production,
Hmm.
and that when I do these songs for these for whatever, uh, that's a lot of it is production. A lot of what I'm doing is production. I write the song. Like this song is actually a year old. I actually wrote it with my wife, and um, this so that we're doing a new version of it. This is like basically a production job. It's a new version of this song, and I have a new singer, and it's like a whole new track and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And you
Anyway,
have all that additional experience to bring back to it and make it something
yeah,
completely
it's like
different.
so fun, and it has nothing to do with my artistic career. It has nothing to do with my TV composing career, which is just it couldn't be more different. It's a total out and out
Hmm.
pop song for Halloween. It's like, I mean, and I never thought I would do that, but here I am recording the singer making ghost sounds, and it's a total pop song with like ghosty stuff in it. It's awesome. I love
But
it.
it, something you said kind of relates to that. Everything that you're saying. Uh, when you are useful, you can make a living. I think that
Yes.
makes a lot of. I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's like, well, any musician might say, well, what does that mean? Like, how do I be useful? I mean, I'm an artist
You
making
have to
art. What would
know
you
how to do stuff.
know how to
If
do
you're
stuff?
because no one needs an artist. I mean,
Oh
I don't
man.
know if that came out right.
uh,
Just
maybe
no one.
maybe a little sharp on the edge though. But we'll elaborate. We'll soften the blow a little
Let's
bit.
let me reorient that. The
I just lost some listeners there. It's all good.
I will say that every like okay, when I moved here, I needed a job, and no one hires a songwriter for a job that pays $15 an hour. There's no like songwriter
Yeah. Craigslist
assistant
ad.
job. It just doesn't exist. You
Yeah.
go from you just write songs, and no one gives you money to do that
Yeah.
until a certain point, and then it's at that point it's just unlike any other kind of career. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be a songwriter, you have to like come up with some other things that you can do that are maybe tangentially
Maybe
related.
relates around the production recording
Yeah, maybe it's
process.
involved with exactly. Maybe it's involved with the studio stuff,
Maybe carry
engineering.
cables, like be a
Uh,
stage,
One of the first jobs that I had
stagehand.
here was working for this woman named Electricia. She's a studio wiring technician. That's what she does. She wires studios, like big studios.
Which I
Like
remember, this is something you said you never excelled at. This is
I
the
was
one
terrible
thing.
at. She had examples on her wall. She still has examples on her wall of work that I did as stuff as this is terrible. Don't do it. If you did this, you did it wrong.
Yeah.
And but it was like this was not something that I was particularly good at, but it was actually very useful because in theory I could solder my own cable. I would probably hire someone else to do it because I was never very good at it.
Yeah.
But anyway, outside of that, I did a lot of I basically taught myself how to engineer, mix, use Pro Tools at a time when it just so happened that analog was basically going away for good.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first jobs I had was working for David Schwartz, who's a composer here. Who
Yeah.
you walked in? I walked into his studio and I was like, "This is where I need to be working." And I was very young. I think I was like early 20s, um, and I went to his studio, which overlooks the Pacific Ocean and the Palisades, and it's just a perfect studio. It's actually a lot of the things in this studio are modeled after that studio because I just love it so much. And I learned there. I started there by ripping out the 24-track machine. I didn't know anything about that, but his former assistant helped, and we also helped pull cables out of a trough and unplug all of the Elco things on the back of the thing. I mean, these are terms I never even knew. I didn't even know
Yeah.
at the time, and that was like how I started. And then I spent a lot of time behind his racks of gear, organizing cables into because I was a little anal about that, and he appreciated that. And then we would he was a TV composer at the time. He had just finished Northern Exposure, and then he had like a bunch of other random shows that lasted like half a season each. And we would do like I would engineer, and he would just sort of throw me into it. He'd be like, set up this microphone,
Mm-hmm.
plug this in. This is the
Mm-hmm.
Neve. You got to plug this thing into that thing, and you would expect it to be right away. And I had this was really my first experience in like a sort of real studio because
Yeah.
he was really into the recording of music and mixing and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And
Do you feel
anyway.
like? Do you feel like? do you feel like he? Do you feel like he was your mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. He was my mentor, not just in terms of not
Music,
just
but
in terms
life.
of music. Well, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, I walked into that studio, and it was more than just the studio. He like had the life that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great house. His studio was in the backyard. That's not what I have, but I don't know if I really want that because there's downsides to that. I looked at him as an example of some things that I thought were awesome and a couple of things that I thought I would do differently. But he's a great musician, and I sort of liked his whole approach to the whole business of writing music for TV. And then after about a year and a half, I quit because I hated it.
Really?
I basically was left to do a pilot without him there. He like wrote some things and he was like, okay, finish this. And then I was left, he was on vacation. I was left with the creators of this show to finish it. And it just didn't go well. And
sounds scary, man.
It was really scary. And it was just, I was like alone in his studio and I was like trying to figure this thing out. And it was like too much, too soon or something. I don't know. I just wasn't ready for it. And I was like, this sucks. And I hated the people. I just hated it. It was terrible.
Is this when you went back to your artist stuff?
Yeah. So then I went back. I was like, forget this. I'm going to make a record. So I used that summer and made an album in his studio. And, that was also a big learning experience because I had to I was basically producing for the first time, like actively producing, like from start to finish. And what became of that was an album that's sort of all over the map production wise. I was like testing out different production styles. There's like a Peter Gabriel song. There's like a a Jeff Buckley song. I was really into him at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of all over the map. And anyway, I left, and I went to work. I had a singing group with some friends of mine, and I went to. I basically said, I'll be your producer engineer, like in-house. And they built this recording studio that I sit in today. It was actually around the corner, but it's basically the same place. We just moved. And that we moved like 16 years ago. So I've been in this room for like 16 years. And I started producing and mixing and recording in reverse order bands and a lot of a cappella groups because I had some expertise in that, all in Pro Tools at this studio. And we also did a lot of Chris, one of the guys the guy who basically built the studio, he worked at a video game company, and so we would record a lot of voiceovers. That was like part of our bread and butter. So that's what I did for many years. I would like record all these groups and bands and whatever, and I would mix them, and I was just learning how to do music from 0 to 100, like all of it. Like write it, and record it, mix it, produce it, interact with the artist. I was also like the studio manager, so I basically was doing everything that there is in making records, as opposed to like TV, as opposed to writing music for TV. And during that time, I made my own series of albums.
I'm curious though, like, I mean, I think that's awesome how you came across David and had access to that kind of equipment and that kind of knowledge from him. I notice there's like a lot of people who excel in their craft. They at some point they come across like a mentor figure, but I'm just curious, like, how do you value your relationship with David as a mentor next to, like, say, college music classes?
Oh, I mean, there's just a big difference. They're like,
if you had to choose one, if I had to take away one of those experiences, which would you rather me take away?
That's too hard. I had such an awesome time in college. But I would choose to have the experience of working with David because it is so direct and constant. It's one-on-one. It's just him and me in the studio all the time making stuff happen. Making music every single day. And especially in this kind of business, the music is different all the time. It's like you can go from one gig, you might have one gig where everything's the same. I did a show with him. So I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but I came back to David after several years, um, and worked with him, sort of alongside him,
Yeah.
as opposed to working for him. And anyway, on one of those shows that I worked with him, every piece of music was the same. It was like, do the same thing, just different. For 13 episodes of television. And it was just a ton. So I have like a ton of like 50s, 40s, 50s Django Reinhardt swing. And I mean, I've got a ton of it. I could play like 150 pieces of music like that. And anyways, that's a side. That's a anyway.
But
So we would
bottom
do
line,
all
David
kinds-
was baller in comparison
He
to a
was
college
baller.
class.
Just, I mean, not that he knows more than they know. They know just a different kind of thing. They're doing a different kind of thing every day, those guys. And when you go to school, when you're studying like music composition, my classes at Penn were in music composition. It was like very pure.
Mm-hmm.
I had a class with George Crumb. There were 3 people in it. We brought in piano music, like chicken scratch piano score. He'd be like, write a piece like this period of Bartok. You'd write it, you'd come in the next day, he would sight read it, he'd scratch out half the notes, he'd sight read it again, and it was always better. That was basically what I learned from that class. Stop writing so many notes. And I still have issues with that. I'm constantly trying to write fewer notes. It's like, that was like a huge lesson that is very useful in a sort of in more of a theoretical and abstract way.
Yeah.
Of
less is more.
Of creating
simplicity.
music. Yeah, it's less is more. So that's what I learned in college.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Less is more.
and you know, it was very profound at the time because he literally was playing this piece of music and he would literally just scratch out half the notes and it was just invariably a million times better. It was incredible to watch. But doing something where you are one-on-one with someone, it was just very practical. It was like a real practical education. And then it became even more practical thereafter when I was working at the studio, because then I had to like make music that was other people's music. I had to like turn it into something that they wanted, and it was like a very practical education. I had to like figure out what microphone to put on a tom, and
you also had to step outside of your own ego, you know, when you work on someone else's music.
Yeah, you're trying to make something good for someone else, and that's like a very powerful motivator. Mm-hmm. And you also don't want to not know. You don't want to not know something. When they say, "Can you make this?" I feel like my vocal's too dark in there. You like have to know what to do, or you just feel bad because you can't make it better.
Yeah.
So I was really into trying to make things better, and so that made me wind up learning everything. I learned how to do everything. Mm-hmm. The only thing I can't do is like I can't really play any other instrument than piano. Mm-hmm. But outside of that,
there are limits. There are human limits.
I can do almost anything. I can engineer pretty decently. I can mix pretty decently. I think I'm a good producer, although I don't get to do that as much for other people anymore. And I write music in a million different styles, and I enjoy them all. Not necessarily equally, but I like I like being able to work on a variety of things, and also to work in a variety of different ways. It's like there's the music part, and there's the like making the music part. Like there's the writing part rather, and the producing part. Basically.
The initial it's like the initial carving and the getting down to like carve out the finer details of it. Getting it as close to the original vision or refining that as possible.
Yeah, and those are both really interesting. They're very and it never stops to be interesting. There's always like stuff to learn.
Have you ever said no to anything?
I just said no to something. Not just now. This spring was a pilot season, and I was like really slammed at this particular point, and somebody called to see if I could like take over a pilot with like 2 days to turn around the score. It might have actually been 1 day to come in, do the score, and basically be done. But I didn't have that day. I wanted to have that day because it's always good to do pilots because you never know which pilots are going to go and which pilots are not going to go.
Yeah.
So,
but for most of your career, did you say no often, or
no? I never said ever.
Never ever. Do you think that would apply to any musician, or is it only some musicians that could do that?
I know it doesn't work for everyone. Like there are some people like know that whatever it is just not for them.
Yeah.
And there's definitely value in that. But like I always kept trying to like be the guy who people wanted to call for anything. I wanted to like sing in the choir and also be the soloist on the rock stuff and also be the guy they called to play, piano on the Hilary Duff album.
Yeah.
And also be the guy who you wanted to mix your stuff and also be the guy who you wanted to write your stuff and certainly produce the stuff. And I just found it to be valuable early on to know how to do lots of little things. Yeah. One of my first gigs, I was just talking with the girl that was here about this. One of my first gigs here was tuning someone famous, who I should probably not say who it was.
Probably not. I don't care if you do, but you probably,
Well, a friend of mine was working for Mike Post, legendary TV composer. And he worked there for 7 years. Very early on in his tenure there, he called me. This is like right after we were done with USC. He's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of auto-tune?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I've heard of that." And it really had just come out. Like it was like everybody was using it, but like it was pretty fresh, and it certainly wasn't part of like the lexicon. And anyway, I went in there and there was this vocal that was just a mess, and this person had just walked out and been like, "Oh, just auto-tune it." So I went in and,
I can tell a lot of people are cringing right now just thinking about it.
So I learned how to use auto-tune like in an afternoon, and it was no big deal. Like, if you're sort of savvy about learning new things, it's like it's actually not that hard to learn how to do it. So that was useful, and I got a check. And I was like, this is great. I was in this nice studio. It was like a Mike Post vibe.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. And I was able to help my friend. And then like I did it for him probably a few other times for other random things. And I don't know. It's just like, it's hard enough to like get your name out in the universe. It's like if you say no to stuff, then there's just like 10 more people you didn't meet.
Yeah.
That you could have impressed with your valuable skills and talent.
Yeah.
And who might write you a check later on when they're like the head of entertainment at Nickelodeon. You know what I mean? Like, who knows what's going to happen? You just don't know what's going to happen.
So you just have to keep an open mind and always try to help people as much as possible.
I think so. I mean, there's a limit to that, but I always wanted to do everything.
What about those? What about for artists? When you have a venue owner who's like, "Oh, play the show for free; it'll give you good exposure." Is that something you should say?
I was just talking with another friend of mine about exposure. That's like the classic, there is no money.
Yeah.
Probably 9 times out of 10, the exposure isn't worth it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're an artist and you're trying to make your living playing shows, I don't know why you wouldn't do it, because your whole point is to be showing people your art, and who knows who might be in the audience at that particular show on that particular day. If it's a gig that sounds just horrifying, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I certainly at this point, like when the rescues get calls to do stuff pretty regularly, and we turn down most of them. There are a few that there are some that we will do, but we certainly don't do anything for exposure anymore.
Yeah.
Because we just know that that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only like at least for us, it's bullshit because we've had exposure, and it doesn't change everything. It changes some things. Like some people know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's nice, and it's helpful probably a little bit. And you know, exposure. I don't know. You have to take exposure for what it's worth. It's worth something. It's not worth everything. You know. I don't know. You have to like if you don't want anyone to ever hear your music, then don't get any exposure.
Yeah.
If you want some people to hear your music, you're going to need some quote unquote exposure.
Yeah. I don't know. I think broad exposure to people who you don't know if they're going to like what you do or not, or going to be into your music is something you have to think about. You have to think about like who are you getting exposed to, and will those people be likely to like your music? Because not everyone like who consumes music, you know, likes everything. You know, there's certain stuff they like and certain stuff they don't. So, I mean, if you're on Montana and, you know, in a small, well, I was actually just in Tombstone, Arizona not too long ago. So I wouldn't move to Tombstone and, you know, play dubstep. Probably not going to go over well.
I don't know. In Arizona, there's probably it's like hot. People.
I'm thinking like Tombstone era, Tombstone specifically, where everybody's dressed up, and it was awesome though. I had an awesome time. I got to shoot some pistols. That was pretty cool. But yeah, like you know, they're you know exposure. You know, in that sense, you have to definitely know who your ideal fan is. Be able to write that down.
Yeah, like if you, for example, like probably the best example is opening for someone.
Mm-hmm.
If you open for if you're a singer-songwriter and you open for a metal band, you're going to endure a lot of pain. If you're a metal band opening for a metal band, you're probably going to get some fans.
Yeah.
So like that's probably the most extreme example.
Yeah.
But
that's the best. That's better than my example.
That's what you have to think about. Like you have to think about like
do
we want to be on tour with those guys?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some crossover there.
Yeah. Well, I want to wrap up with this last question here. Like I mentioned before we started this interview, I'm a productivity nut. So I'm just curious, what does your morning routine look like before you start work?
At 6:30, my daughter walks in and she's 9. She's like, I'm hungry. So I get her breakfast. She's been up already for like half hour to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
She's a super early riser. And then I make breakfast. We have a son also. I make breakfast for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is usually working out by then because she's a workout-aholic. And then she gets home around 7:10, 7:15. We together make lunches. They get dressed. I usually walk them to school at 8 a.m. We live 3 blocks from their school. And then I'm usually at work by 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
And then I work on whatever happens to be going on. Like, let me look at my.
Do you shut your phone off, or do you?
No, oh my God, it's constant. You should see what I've got going. Here, I'll show you what I've got going on here. Hold on. There's 3 screens. There's this screen with my calendar. There's Pro Tools over here. And there's some internet over there.
Oh, man.
My phone is sitting right here. My laptop is what I'm on right now. So there's 3 screens, a laptop, my phone, my other phone, and...
I hear it going...
and it's like... all fucking day long. And while we've been on the phone, there's a call that has been scheduled for 3 p.m., so we'll have to finish soon.
Okay.
But what I've actually been working on, that's like just sort of the constant chaos. And hopefully
wow, man, kudos to you. That kind of flies in the face of all the productivity tips that are out there. Well, but hey, man, power to
I
you.
Can ignore it too. Like, you know, this thing's going crazy, but I'm not like answering anybody. And I'm not looking at either. Yeah. I'll take if I'm working on a piece of music for a while, it's like a treat to go be on the internet for a little bit.
Yeah.
Answer emails.
So it's like your mini reward.
Yeah, it's like a little reward. Instead of like smoking cigarettes, I get to like do my email.
Yeah.
And okay, so yesterday I was at Modern Family because there's a girl who comes in to sort of and shows up. I can't tell you what happened because this episode hasn't aired. But basically, I went to the set, which happens very rarely. Maybe a few times a season, I go to the set because there's some musical issue and they want me there to sort of make sure it goes off okay. Mm-hmm. Today I was recording this song for Mattel for the Monster High brand. And it's for a Monster High movie, I can tell you that comes out later.
Woohoo!
Then there's a Rectify screening of the last episode tomorrow night that I'm going to go to. Mm-hmm. What else is going on? There's a series of commercials for another client whose name I can't tell you, mm-hmm. that I'm sort of working on over the course of the whole month. Mm-hmm. These are like kids commercials, like all the stuff that you like watched when you on Saturday morning cartoons, like these little like mini songs, and they're hysterical. Then it's actually pretty like chill right now. This is like pretty chill because I don't have an active television show at this moment other than Modern Family. Yeah. Rectify finished like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I went on vacation and now I'm just sort of like doing a bunch of other random things. Modern Family's going, but we're not in post yet. They're shooting the 3rd episode of season 6. And then these 2 new shows that I have won't start for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh man!
So between now and then, I have like a sort of. It's not so crazy.
I'm like passing out from all the. I'm just imagining. I'm just imagining juggling all that. I mean, but hey, you've been at it for a while, and you've figured out your own personal system that works for you. Which is awesome.
It takes time to figure that out. Mm-hmm. I think that's true. It takes time to like. It also takes time to sort of. It doesn't happen instantly. It's not like suddenly somebody dumps 7 television shows.
Yeah. You slowly add it.
Like do one, and then maybe somebody like has you do a commercial while you're in the middle of an episode. Yeah. And you're like, oh my god, how can I possibly do that? Yeah. And then it happens, and you realize that you can do that. Yeah. That's the other thing about not saying no. Yeah. Is that no matter, I have found that I have not reached my limit in terms of the amount. That's good. That you can do at the same time. Mm-hmm. First of all, you're never actually doing 2 things at the same time. Yeah. You just have sort of projects that overlap. Yeah. So the question is, how many projects can you sort of juggle?
Prioritize and know exactly what you need to be doing.
Yes, and do well and pay enough attention to. Yeah. I have people that help me also, so it's not entirely on me, but I want to make sure that I can give enough attention to everything. And so the question is, for anyone, is like how, this is an embarrassment of riches, but if you were given a lot of work, how much could you do? And the answer is, you don't know until you're doing it. Mm-hmm. So you might as well say yes, and then when you realize that you are running out of time or like there's just not going to be enough time, a lot of musicians probably who can help and who would be thrilled to help you in whatever way. So that's what winds up happening.
Okay. Well, Gabriel, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got another call to make, but I want to thank you for coming on the show and just talking about what you do with all of us musicians here.
It's my pleasure.
That's I'm definitely inspired by the fact that you can do so much shit.
It's you better get on it. You better you need to get on it right now. You need to go do something.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm like, dang, man. Shit, whew, I'm sweating over here.
But you know what? The other thing is that that is not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Like there are a lot of people. There are guys that I have like a regular guitar player that I work with, who he just has a whole other life. He's in a band, they're actually a pretty big band, so it's not like his life was terrible. He's in Our Lady Peace, but I work with him all the time, and I've hired him. He's like my go-to guitar player. but he's not really interested in like doing what I do.
Yeah.
He doesn't want that much stuff. He doesn't want to be stressed out in that way.
Yeah.
That's like great.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could do it his way. Like
Yeah.
it's totally. I don't know. I'm just saying it's not for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, man, Gabriel, thanks again, man.
All right. Good to talk to you.
Okay, later. So that wraps up another week's episode of Seeds of Music. On the show today, we had Gabriel Mann, musician, composer, and member of The Rescues. Make sure to check out his links below and give your support. Check out his music. Next, if you haven't yet, sign up for the Seeds of Music email newsletter. You'll get updates on new interviews, vlog episodes, and articles, plus special newsletter content to help you build a bigger fan base and sell more music online. And once again, we do have the iTunes podcast. You can head over there, subscribe, and get all the episodes automatically downloaded, so you never have to worry about missing anything, and you can listen to the car on your way to work, or at the gym when you're working out, or you're cooking, or whatever. Next, if you have Facebook, like and share this on that, as well as if you have Twitter, tweet that out, or if you have Reddit, post talk about it on Reddit, wherever you like to hang out, to share this interview so more musicians can hear about the show and really get involved in this community. And last, comment on the video. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on these interviews. Do you know someone who should be on the show, or is that person you? I have an open door email policy. Just email me at kyle.seedsmusic@gmail.com. At the most, it takes 2 days for me to get back to most emails, but rest assured, I make sure that I hit up every legit email, that legit as in coming from you, a viewer, and not like spam from Nigeria, which I delete immediately. But yeah, send me an email and I'll get right back to you. Remember, we are the future of music.